Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Aleasha Bahr, and this is Introverted Entrepreneur Success Stories. I'm a sales coach for introverts, and I craft custom sales processes with you that allow you to sign up over 50% of the people you talk to without paying, pitching, or pretending to be somebody else. And the idea for this show came from people like you who have the desire to be an entrepreneur, but might let being an introvert hold you back or make you think you're not cut out for it. So we decided it could be helpful to interview other introverted entrepreneurs about their journey, success, and how they feel about sales. Because we found that sales is an unavoidable part of entrepreneurship and often the reason that introverts shy away from starting a business. So joining us on the show today is Kerry Ben Joseph. She's a WordPress wizard who has helped many people look good online over the last 10 years. So very strong, successful career as an entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Kerry.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so happy to have you. And you have so many good stories to share with us about, entrepreneurship, obviously not always being like the most successful thing right from the get-go. So before starting a business, did you think that being an introvert would be an asset or not?
Before starting a business, and I've been in it for a really long time, I really didn't give much thought to that aspect. It was more so when I told people that I'm starting a business, they would be like, "Oh, but you're shy or you're quiet." Or I'm like, "I'm not shy. I'm not quiet. I process differently. Like I get my energy differently. Like I'm introverted. I'm not those things you think I am." But they, especially my ex-husband at the time, he he was like, "Well, you have to network, you have to do this, you have to do that and do this." And I was like, "Well, I'm going to give it a shot because I'm interested in it." So I did.
Yeah. Well, what do you think now that you're on the other side of it? Do you think it's been an asset?
Oh, for sure. I definitely think that it's been an asset for me to be an introvert because the way that I process, and especially in the industry that I'm in, I design websites. So it's very creative. It's very challenging. I feel like it's like putting puzzle pieces together because you can go at it a bunch of different ways and it's finding the right puzzle piece or right way to do it for your particular client. So I feel like that gives me an edge, specifically in my creative field, but also in relating to my clients. Like I feel like I'm able to focus on them and I'm really good one-on-one. And even though I don't go to networking events and I shy away from them because being in a group of people just is like super overwhelming. And not that we do that since COVID, but
Right.
I feel like because I work one-on-one with clients, I feel like that's been such an asset.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's usually what I see with introverted entrepreneurs because they care so much about the quality of what they're putting out. And they're so good at hearing the other person. That's why they're usually really great at sales is they actually hear the other person and they're not thinking of a way to sell them, but they're thinking of a way to help them more so, unless they've gotten some sales training that makes them think that they need to act differently. But on the project too, like the dedication to quality, and introverts really in it for that end result that they can give somebody. I found more so than extroverts usually.
Absolutely. I really strive to over deliver. So when I tell a client I'm going to do something, I give them the basics and then I over deliver on that. And I think that they really appreciate that. And I saw on your website, like you had an experience where you were working and the product you were selling was not delivering. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. Like that's something that's, I guess, one of my core values.
Yeah. It's just, you can only, tell your client sorry so many times before you're like, I can't do this anymore. It's embarrassing,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've kind of talked about it, but how do you think it influences you as an entrepreneur being an introvert?
So I have to, I guess, pick and choose where I spend my time. So people say you need to go to networking events. I'm not going to go to a networking event because I know once I step into that room with all of those people, even if I know people, I'm going to start saying, telling myself these things like, oh, like, like these repeating patterns and or voices in my head are like, oh, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that, you're not that. And then I'll be like, I gotta go. And then I leave and I feel deflated and I'm like, oh, that's such a failure. Whereas if I don't focus on networking events and I focus on my strengths as being an introverted entrepreneur,
Yeah.
referrals. So because I work so closely with my clients and I over deliver and I care about them, they really feel that and they are happy to refer me to people. So that's how I get all my sales, referrals. So
Yeah.
they say, work with Kerry, and I get on a call with them and I just basically tell them what I do. And I was telling you, like, I'm not good at sales, or I feel like I'm not good at sales, but what I'm doing on these calls is just telling them my process and relating to them. And they are like, yes, let's do it. So I'm doing something, right? I'm selling
Yeah.
somehow. I'm not selling the way that I think I should, but so referrals is a big one for me, I think, as an introverted entrepreneur.
There's so much good there for people to take away. I think that like being really perceptive about yourself and what works for you is such a big thing. And it is a big thing in sales too. So many people say like you have to do things a certain way, and that's just absolutely not true. And it's crazy to me when people say that. That's like saying that I can't think of anything that's like there's only one way to do it. Like there's always a multiple ways of doing it, and leaning into your intuition and knowing what is right for you, and effective for you, and really drowning out those other voices is so important for your success. And like being aware of the energy, like how you spend your energy. So it's not an effective use of energy for you to go to a networking meeting because it's not going to result in business for you.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to result in me like feeling like a failure in that moment. And I don't want to spend my energy doing that because I know my worth and I know my work is good. So I'd rather just spend one-on-one time with people. So absolutely.
Yeah. And knowing that like it makes you discouraged and that makes you show up differently in your work outside of that is really important too. And being, introverts are often a little more aware of those things with themselves than um other people. Like at least they really should be. Some of us have all, we've all suffered from drowning out our when bells go off and when we know certain things because mainstream says it should be different or somebody around you says it should be different. But I think that we're really should lean in. That definitely helps introverts on sales, is leaning into that intuition of knowing how the other person's responding to you and how you're responding and how you're feeling before, during, and after is just going to make such a difference in your success. And I would bet that's a big part of why you've been doing this successfully for 10 years.
It is. It really is. And I've done different things. I've maintained websites, but I've also dabbled in different things over the past 10 years, just, because I have this, I have this thing, I call them fireflies, where I get inspiration and I'm like, oh, I have to go follow that inspiration. I'll continue doing this, but I'm just going to follow this and see where this goes. I follow the firefly. And so like, I have lots of experience with just trying out different things and learning from them and working with people one-on-one. And I think that that skill that I have with just being able to relate to someone one-on-one and feel comfortable and confident and um, it energizes me, like being one-on-one with someone
Yeah.
versus like a big crowd. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's so great that there's no judgment there. It's just like, this is what it is. Like just knowing what's effective and not effective, and it's not good or bad. Like it's okay
Mhm.
that crowds aren't your thing. Like who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah,
Whatever.
totally.
Yeah. So, what were you most concerned about before becoming an entrepreneur?
The biggest thing, honestly, I was concerned about was finances. So I had a job, a full-time job, when I first ventured off into entrepreneur land. And I was concerned and I didn't have the mindset of, will I make enough money? Will I be able to support myself? Will I be able to um, cover the cost of my business? Will I be able to pay myself? Things like that. Like
Yeah.
those, that was one of my biggest concerns. And that relating to entrepreneurship is that, will I meet enough people to let them know that I exist and this is what I do? So that too was, I guess, a concern.
That is probably something that anyone watching this show has also said to themselves. So how did you meet people?
Referrals.
But the
So my
first
ex-husband,
one
yes.
couldn't be a referral.
No, the first one was
Yeah.
not a referral. The first one was actually a friend who
Oh,
was like, I'm gonna pay you. And then I was able to show him what I could do. And then he was like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm gonna tell my friends. It was, and it snowballed from there. But so my ex-husband, he is still super extroverted. So he would go out and network
yeah.
and find people and introduce me. So that's sort of, I guess, a
Oh,
referral. So
that's helpful. Yeah. I mean, for introverts, I'm learning more about networking. I really don't like networking. It feels like an inefficient use of time too. There are definitely more strategic ways to go about it. Like you need to have some type of purpose when you go network, rather than just going and being like, oh, like, let's see what happens, which is what a lot of us, and then you leave and you're like, well, I met people and I'll never see them again. Um,
right. Yes.
Yeah, but if you go with a buddy, it makes it so much better. So if your ex-husband, was kind of like that buddy, it's like, great. That can work for an introvert.
Oh,
Uh,
totally. Totally. And it did. It worked out great. I went with him to a couple of networking events, and we were in Chicago at the time, and they're overwhelming. Lots of people, shoulder to shoulder, and people are handing out business cards. And I'm like, whoa, this is not my scene.
business cards. Ew.
I know.
um, okay. So you tried something that helped people network, right? You built a community, and tell us about that.
Yes. So a few years ago, I had this idea to build an online networking community outside of the existing social media platforms. So outside of Instagram, outside of Facebook, where introverted entrepreneurs could come and connect online in a way that's comfortable and safe, and where we're able to connect and help each other grow and cheer each other on. And that community was called Honey and Hive Community.
Oh, cute.
And so I had this beautiful idea, this place where we can all come together, and a lot of the activities that we would do would have Zoom networking or Zoom parties where we'd all come together on Zoom and we'd take turns, talking, and then we would connect, and then breakout rooms where we could connect one on one.
Right.
This was pre-COVID. This was before the pandemic
The
started.
firefly came to you early.
It did. It really did. So I got some founding members together, and I started inviting people into the community, and it was beautiful and great. But I was spending a lot of money to
Oh,
keep the technology part of it, because that's
yeah.
my background, technology. I built the community. So I was spending a lot of money with the technology and having a community liaison, and like hiring people and marketing. Like I was just spending a lot of money, and it came to a point where I was spending too much money and not spending enough time with it, that it was draining me. So I didn't have,
Mm,
it wasn't growing to a point where it could like sustain and support itself. And this is
yeah.
on the side of me doing websites. Um, so I decided to close it in January of 2020, before the pandemic started. And then as soon as the pandemic started, everybody started doing Zoom calls and Zoom meetings and Zoom parties and like Zoom networking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my vision. Like everybody's doing it. It was my vision for introverted entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs specifically, but like everybody started doing it. I'm like, oh my goodness, darn it.
I
I
love
should have kept it going, but I needed to shut it down for my own sanity, and like it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. But yeah, so I shut it down, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at all these things I learned. So I learned a new platform, like building a new platform. I learned some marketing things. I learned growing a community, like how to grow a community, and like that my vision is like I had this future vision that came to fruition for a lot of other people, just not in the way that I thought it was going to. So
Yeah, and I just love that you allowed yourself the permission to do something that is scary. I mean, that's the thing that stops most people from even starting a business, is that it is kind of scary. But that failure, there isn't really a failure. It's either the result or the lesson that you needed. And you got so much out of that. And the fact that I'm sure, I mean, let me know if this is accurate, that part of the reason you were able to pursue this idea and other ideas in the past is because you started this WordPress business and were successful with it. And so what else is possible kind of becomes the question, and really like grows your confidence to do things. Nothing is impossible, just whatever you limit yourself to, pretty much.
Oh, totally. I think my biggest fear though with like starting or chasing a firefly or starting a new business or trying something new is putting it out there with the people that I know and then having to come back to them and say, oops, that didn't work out. Like, and
Yeah.
then like that disappointment that could happen. But I don't look at it that way. I'm not afraid to try new things and say, hey, everybody, this is what I'm doing. This is a new thing that I'm starting. And I have so much support from my own community. And they're like, yeah, let's see what Kerry's doing next. Let's cheer her on, which I'm so grateful for. Like that, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. That's so great. I mean, honestly, it does feel scary that to be to say that you failed. Like, I think that is something that a lot of people are like thinking about. Like, then I'll have to tell people that I failed. But the truth is, like, the pros outweigh the cons. Like, you could succeed. And honestly, I found that nobody cares. Like, everybody's just thinking about themselves.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not thinking, oh, why didn't that community work out for Kerry? Like she should have done this or she should, people aren't thinking about that. I mean, I might be thinking about that sometimes. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's not a failure. It's putting yourself out there. That's really scary, but you're absolutely right. The pros do outweigh the cons because it could be successful. Like, who knows? Who knows? Like, just do it.
Yeah. And you grow either way. You're better,
Absolutely.
stronger, smarter from it. So it's like, yeah. Okay. So let's talk sales, which is an unavoidable thing for any entrepreneur. How did you feel about sales before you became an entrepreneur?
I thought sales was like slimy, dirty, like icky. Like that's what came to my head um before I became an entrepreneur. I thought it was like you had to be like the stereotype of a used car salesman, like look at me, like I'm doing this, buy this, like this,
Yeah.
you need it, that sort of thing. But that's not for me. I think that what sales are at all, especially when I have all these referrals coming in and I'm just speaking with them, I'm having an honest conversation with them one-on-one about what I do and what they need and listening to them and offering a solution to their needs. So um
That's all
yeah,
sales is. That is all sales is a conversation, understanding what the other person's situation is. And then if you can solve it, letting them know, yeah, this is something I can do. And this is what it would look like. Does that sound good to you? Yeah, it does. Okay. Like, that's really all sales is. And so a lot of time introverts, if anybody's watching this that thinks that they couldn't be good at being an entrepreneur because they're an introvert and they wouldn't be good at sales, like Carrie's a fantastic example of that not being true, because you just are yourself. Just really trying to help somebody and understand if you can help them is all that's necessary. I mean, think about who you like buying from. Do you like buying from like the smoothest, most charming, like extroverted, whatever? Or do you like buying from somebody who's like listening to you and who's like clearly trying to understand what's really going on in your life and clearly explaining how they can help?
absolutely. And I still have this thing in my head and it's like I feel like it's ingrained that I'm bad at sales. I still feel that. I still think about that. I'm like, oh, I'm bad at sales. Like I still tell people and I don't know why. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
mindset thing.
Well, so that's really common. We kind of talked about it a little before. It's that people have this idea of what of someone who's good at sales looks like. And it's usually like a person that nobody actually wants to buy from. So we compare ourselves to this image in our mind of like somebody who's just super smooth, but being transparent is so much more compelling, which an introvert is like, here, like, let me lay it out. Like, this is what the potential pitfalls could be. Like, this is what I think we could do though. And, that's so much more appreciated and trust, like builds so much more trust. So I think it's just that like people feel like they're not supposed to be as transparent, or they're supposed to say things in a more charming way or something, but it's so unnecessary for someone deciding if you're a good fit to solve their problems.
Absolutely. And I think I do still have that idea of that smooth talker in my head. I'm like, I'm definitely not that person.
But I bet you could outsell that person.
Probably.
Yeah,
I think so.
you could. People would realize like this girl's really genuine and actually wants to help me. This guy just, says a lot of nice things, but she made it clear how she's going to help me. Like she didn't just
Mm,
say, oh, we're going to do it and it's going to be marvelous and don't worry and I've got you and blah 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 blah.
yeah.
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 Okay, so what do you recommend to other introverts considering becoming entrepreneurs?
Okay, this is a great one. So I recommend just doing it, just putting yourself out there. Like, um, find an accountability buddy and tell them what you're doing and then do it. It's so hard. I know it's so scary, but like I, I think that's what I've done over the years, and it just worked for me. And it's so scary, but you got to do it. You just do it.
Well, so I mean, let's talk about like it's so scary, but on the other side of it, how does it feel?
Oh, it feels great. It feels great. You feel accomplished. You're like, oh my gosh, I said I was going to do it and I did it. I have integrity. My words match my actions. Like I feel like I launched my business, or I launched my website and I got some sales, or whatever. Once you passed all of those milestones, you're like, holy moly, I did it. It feels really good. It really does. So yeah,
Yeah.
just do it.
Doing it in spite of the fear, it like feels better. Like if you weren't scared, it almost like there's like saying if it's, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like it wasn't worth it. Like you weren't going to grow if you were just like, oh, I'll do this and I don't care. Like it wouldn't be as fun on the other side. Uh,
Oh, totally. Totally. And I think I take that for granted. Um, when I did do it, I was scared, but I did it anyway. And I came across this quote. I'm not going to do it justice, but it's like, put yourself, I'll just kind of summarize it. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations until you feel comfortable, and then keep doing it. And that's how you grow. So
yeah.
if it feels uncomfortable, like it's okay. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel scared, but if you're doing it, you're going to feel so good once you've reached your goals and milestones.
Yeah. And even like if it doesn't work out, like continuing on and you grew and learned so much from that happening. And I mean, it just honestly, the discomfort I think also comes from us like being so inside our heads and knowing that nobody cares. Nobody's thinking. That's the same thing in sales. Like people are like in a sales conversation, it can change a lot for somebody when they realize that the other person is only thinking about themselves, like that you're talking to. They're not thinking about you at all. They're thinking about how does this relate to me? How does this help me? Like that kind of thing. And it's the same with, going going for it. And there might be naysayers in your life, like in Carrie's, like doing it in spite of your ex-husband saying that is brave and strong. And it probably felt really good that it that it
Oh,
succeeded.
totally. And I should say that he was actually really supportive after
Okay.
saying that. So
Well, once he saw the success, yeah, then he was supportive.
but I
um,
do you're absolutely right. Like when I was in my early 20s, being introverted, not an entrepreneur yet, but being introverted, I did feel like sometimes, like if I went to a restaurant by myself, like eating, I felt so self-conscious, and I'm like, people are watching me put this food in my mouth. People are watching me like do this, and no one cared. Like no one was watching me eat. And that's just like looking back on that, I was like, why was I so in my head about like people watching me eat? Like nobody cares. But that could be related to like when you put yourself out there for starting a business. Like no one cares when you're like doing the little things you need to do to launch your business. Just do it. Just put it out there, and just have fun with it.
yeah, have fun. Like the less serious you take it. I mean, not to say that it's not a business and you shouldn't take it serious, but the less
Sure.
serious you take, like don't put more emphasis on the doing of it than the result of it, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, Carrie, it has been so wonderful having you on. You're such a great example of what's possible for introverts in the entrepreneur space. I hope this gives somebody the confidence that they need and the belief in themselves that they're actually better suited in a lot of ways, and also like gets your expectations aligned with what to expect. Like, yeah, there'll be moments, but they'll all be fun, and there are other people here. I mean, I love supporting other people getting in the space. Do you, Carrie? Like, we're like, yes, come on.
Absolutely. Yes. I love it. I love cheering other people on. I love seeing people succeed.
Yes. So, how can people find you, Carrie?
So people can find me. I'm starting another business
Oh,
in addition to my WordPress stuff. So it's called Like Cake, and I'm teaching
oh,
people how to build their own WordPress sites. And I use the analogy of baking a cake to explain the process. So it's like
cool.
cake. So Instagram likecake.co, or my website likecake.co.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So people don't have to pay as much money to get the website. They can do it themselves. And it could also be a skill that they start, charging other people for.
Absolutely 100%.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming, Carrie. And
Thank you.
whoever's out there, please, please know that you have an amazing talent or skill to offer that people will be so grateful that you stepped out and really did something with. So we'll talk to you again soon.